Hi everyone and welcome to The Board, episode 15. I'm Kirsten Donaldson and this is Gavin Cochran.
Yes, Gavin Cochran. Thank you for almost mispronouncing my name again.
Yeah.
I think you do that on purpose.
So this week we're going to be talking about a couple of things that Nathan saw at a couple of recent conferences he went to. He's been to the Sydney Agile Conference and also the Shanghai Conference. So the first thing is just a bit of fun that I believe we put on the blog this week. It's a Scrum Graphic that Nathan picked up as a handout while he was at the Shanghai Conference. It's an anime picture of how Scrum works. I believe we've got that as a graphic that Sam's going to put up in a moment.
It's just a visualization of how Scrum works, and it's pretty interesting. It's quite a bit different than ones that we're used to seeing. It's obviously very cutesy and, like you said, very manga-ish.
But you know what I like about it is that all of the people in the sprint are women, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite a change for me.
Yeah.
But it was pointed out to me via a comment on the blog this morning that there's actually some inconsistencies and it's not quite correct. So if you want to know about that and look at it a bit more closely, have a look at the post on our blog.
Yep. And if you're looking at our blog as well, you might have noticed that we have changed the Boost office a little bit recently. We've brought in some stand-up desks. We initially brought in 3 stand-up desks just to see how people felt about them and if people use them and what sort of effect it had on their working day. And it was very successful. People were clamoring to use the stand-up desk, so we got more in, and we're going to be getting yet more in another fortnight or so. So we have about 6 to 9.
We've got 9 now, and we're going to replace the rest of the desks. I went round, because I was writing a post about it for the blog, I went around and interviewed a couple of people around the office about it the other day, and some of the comments were about sort of the general well-being they felt. So for example, there was a guy that had been having some back pain, and he said that after standing for 3 or 4 hours a day, his back felt better.
And they're quite cool desks as well, because you don't have to stand for 8 hours a day. They are electrified desks, so you can also lower them if you choose to sit for part of the day as well. But looking at people, it seems like they're standing.
They seem pretty happy. I thought when you said electrified, you meant if you touch them, you kind of get a shock.
No, that would be quite counterproductive. Yes, enjoyable to watch, I suppose.
But I think they make a difference actually as well to the way that we interact with people when they're at their desk. Because if someone's sitting at their desk, you normally have to approach them. They can't see you because they're facing forward.
Yes.
Whereas if you're standing up, it's a bit easier to sort of turn sideways a little bit, and
exactly.
sort of ad hoc conversations are a lot easier, which I think really aids communication around the office.
Oh, absolutely, and I've just noticed the conversations are flowing a little bit more freely since we got these stand-up desks, and people are talking to each other, whereas sometimes they might send an email to somebody or even instant message to somebody, which even though they're only 20 feet away, that's what happens sometimes. But the stand-up desk has just allowed for that collaboration to be just a little bit easier, so it's fantastic.
It just feels much more open, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think also, we have a different configuration than we had for the desk previously, and that changes things as well. It's amazing how much just some little changes in positioning can change the atmosphere of an office. Oh, absolutely.
Well, the change in environment has a huge impact on how somebody responds throughout the day. We did have an employee in the past who will remain nameless, but they were sitting in a corner and felt quite excluded and weren't
as engaged
as they might be and part of the team as they might be. So it was just a simply moving of their desk into sort of the center of the room, and it was an experiment to see how that affected the team member themselves. And once we did move the desk, the team member completely changed attitudes.
So much more engaged and happier, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think would like to move back into that corner again. So change.
Maybe.
Well, who knows? But change of environment really does have a huge impact, and a bigger impact that I really thought possible until I saw it in action itself. And the stand-up desks are just another step in that.
Yeah, and I think what would be really good with the stand-up desks is if we did get to the stage where we were able to be quite flexible about where we work during the day, so that our desk isn't a permanent setting.
Yes.
But I think that's another little way down the line as people adjust to working with stand-up desks.
Absolutely. So you're talking about hot desking, that sort of thing.
I think it does rely on people being a bit more portable.
Yes.
I know for myself, I've got a couple of big piles on my desk.
You have got a bunch of crap on your desk, yes.
Yeah. So I'd have to deal with that crap on my desk in order to be a little more flexible. But I'm willing to do it.
I see Julian, you were having problems actually seeing the show. He said it was still initializing, so if you can actually see this, let us know on the chat on live stream. One thing that Nathan, and by the way, Nathan is the managing director of Boost. Another thing he came across at the Scrum gathering in Australia was he went to a course by Lynn Kazali, who is actually doing a course here at Boost on August 29th. For anybody who's interested, there's tickets available. But he went to her course over there, and she teaches you how to represent concepts and ideas more efficiently, visually. So her whole course is about visual communication, and she's been in the business for about 15 years. So I think as Scrum Masters or people in Agile, a lot of the time the whiteboard is a very good friend of yours and something you use quite a lot. And it's quite hard to talk about concepts and ideas and get them up on a board in a legible and interesting and I suppose engaging way.
I think quite often we use it as something more for us than for the audience, so it ends up being a bit of a scribble to aid our explanation.
Yes, yeah.
But what Lynn teaches is doing something that actually is a graphical representation that looks like something.
Yes, yeah.
So, it has proper little people rather than just a cross that you might have put previously. You've got some examples, haven't you?
I do, yes. So there's a couple of booklets we have here which just give you some ideas.
Julian's just refreshed so you can see.
Julian's in. Hello, Julian. So we've got these books to show you, so give you some ideas about how you might represent some stuff visually. I'm not sure how well you can see that. But it's just fairly simple ideas, fairly simple concepts, and just shows you ways that you might be able to draw that and represent that, and also ways you can draw it quickly and cleanly and understandably. And there's a plethora of stuff here. There's 2 of these booklets. This is another one we have here. And
it's quite hard to see, I think. But I think
also
in a moment we'll get Sam to put up that one that Nathan did on the plane on the way home.
Yes. Actually, Nathan, we do have the notebook that he had from the course itself, and you can see when he started, it was just the sort of stuff that we end up doing a lot of the time, which is scrolls, really. And there you go, there's a classic example of just a scroll there. But you can see as he progressed through the course how much neater things get. There's a few examples of trying to draw people quickly and trying to draw some banners, and there's a whole myriad of different little icons there. Introducing a bit of color until you get something like this. So Sam, if you can show that Scrum in 10 minutes diagram.
So this is something that Nathan just knocked up quite quickly on the plane. Obviously his skills are evolving, but you can see that it's a bit more use than perhaps some of the squiggles we're used to doing.
Yeah, I did Scrum in 10 minutes for a group of people quite recently, and when I was finished I looked at the board and I thought, oh, that just is an ugly mess. It was understandable, but it just wasn't pleasant to look at. And I think some things just little touches like the people and the introduction of colors and the banners and the 3D blocks and stuff just makes it look much more engaging.
I think not just that, but also the fact that Lynn emphasises or teaches how to make your handwriting legible.
Yeah,
Since the age of us typing everything, a lot of us have got really legible writing now. Nathan's is looking a lot better than I've seen it recently.
Yeah, and like I said, people in this sort of agile business do have to present stuff quite a lot and present stuff quite quickly, and I'm often asked to explain Scrum to people and to do it in a timely fashion, so this is going to be very valuable. And one thing that was mentioned as well, if you're on a whiteboard and you're, say, doing a retrospective and somebody's giving you ideas and you're just scrawling up the ideas in a messy, illegible sort of fashion, it sort of says to the people who've given you that idea that you don't respect their idea.
So we all need to learn to draw better as a matter of respect for other people.
Yeah. well, I think so. If you get their ideas up in a nice and it looks good, I think it'll make everybody a little bit happier.
Yeah. So there's a few of us here at Boost that are going to attend this course, but we do have 6 other spots for anyone in Wellington that wants to join us. The details are on our Eventbrite page, but we'll stick a link up later after the show. And I think it'll be a fun course to do, because basically you're going to be drawing for a day. Yeah. And apparently you don't have to be able to draw it all, that's the point behind it. Yeah. No, it's great. Actually, what I'm really looking forward to, though, is being able to use it afterwards. Yes. Yeah. And hopefully see the results of people being able to pick up concepts a little bit quicker than from my squiggles. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes. So the other thing we want to talk about this week was something that comes up quite a lot when we do our Scrunch lunches here at Boost. Scrunch lunch is just a chance for Scrum Masters and people who work Scrum to get together and talk about issues that they've encountered in their daily Scrum lives. So one of the things that comes up really often is, how do you deal with meteors or seagulls? So do you want to explain what a meteor or a seagull is?
Well, sure. Well, seagull is a very specific term that I know one company use.
Yeah.
Meteors is a more common term, and it's just when your team has committed to a certain amount of work throughout the sprint. Midway through the sprint, something comes in that absolutely must be attended to. It might basically something is broken, or it's a bug that it's absolutely critical. And everybody, it can't be ignored, it can't be left until the start of the next sprint, it can't be put into the backlog. And people often ask, how do you deal with this? Because obviously it's going to interfere with the work that people have committed to during the sprint.
So I thought it might be useful. Recently, one of our more established teams decided they needed a way of dealing with meteors because they were getting a number of them. So what they did, I think it was a couple of months ago, was to set up a Kanban lane across the top of their visible workspace, whereby meteors could enter that lane, and the progression of those could be seen through. So what they've done is they've labelled their columns queue, in progress, resolved, analysis, and done. So it goes into they've got a limit as well of 2 meteors, their thoughts being that if there's more than 2, then one or other of them are not meteors. They can't be that important. So that goes into the queue. It goes into a resolution process. And then the analysis column is, well, they've actually given it a longer name now to give it its actual what happens within that column, which is find out what this is and stop it from happening again. Something along those lines. So that's a little bit of work that they do, so they can see why it's happening and how they can stop it from happening in the future. And quite often out of that column, another story will go into the backlog so that they actually make some progress and the meteor hopefully won't come up again.
Yeah.
So talking to the guys this morning about this Kanban lane and the effect it's had on their work and the effect it's had on dealing with meteors, one of the major advantages they see is that these meteors are given proper care and attention rather than sort of having to snatch moments to deal with them. They're looking at ways of preventing them from happening again, and the work is visible. So before, the work wasn't accounted for in the sprint at all. It didn't have any points or anything like that. And you know, while that's not the most important thing in the world, it is good for morale to have work recognised.
Absolutely. So this does have points assigned to it as well?
Their meteors?
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah. No, I was asking you that.
Oh, I don't think so.
No.
But what happens is in their retros, they talk about how many meteors occurred during the sprint and what they were and what happened with them. So in that way, the work's made very visible to everyone in the team and the product owner and the extended team. So that's how they deal with that. And they feel that's working really well at the moment. So hopefully that'll be of some use to people out there.
And I know they had a retrospective about how to handle meteors, and they tried this Kanban approach as an experiment, really, and it seems to be a big success for them, and the fact that they're still using it and still handling their meteors this way is very promising.
I think it's really interesting that team has been a consistent Scrum team for the same client and project for a number of years now, but they're still managing to come up with ways to improve their processes. For example, this Kanban thing, and they're also still facing challenges. Their team changes now and then in various different ways. And so there's always things coming up for them, and it means they're always evolving, which is really interesting. So they're a high-performing team already, but they're just always getting better, it seems. Which is
the point, really. And I've seen meteors handled different ways in different teams as well, on smaller projects. When meteors come in, I've seen people come to the team, say we've got this thing really needs to be dealt with, and they discuss it with the team, see if they can bring it into the sprint, see if they can actually size it as well.
Right.
And this will be a relatively quick conversation, but also discuss with the team whether it's going to affect the other stories in the sprint, and if perhaps the story of equal value needs to come off the bottom of the sprint. So I've seen people do it that way, and that works quite well on smaller projects. And I've handled that way myself quite a lot, and that way you do get to bring it to the team, they get to work on it straight away, but also it's a group discussion where everybody gets a chance to actually talk about the impact that working on it is going to have.
Right.
I've also seen situations where a meteor might come in and you bring it to the team, and the team can be a little bit negative about it and saying, oh, okay, this meteor means that something has to drop off the bottom of the sprint. And that was just, they had gotten into that sort of a pattern. Whenever something else comes in, they'd be disgruntled, and
so it would always be a trade-off for them.
And I don't think that's quite the right way to approach it. I think you have to have, accept that these things happen, and really have a good positive discussion about it, and make some decisions as a group when it comes in.
I mean, especially when you're working on a product that's in production already, it's inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's right. And I think it's useful as well, because if something comes in that everybody says really needs to be worked on, and if the team does say, okay, no problem, we can do that, but it's quite a sizable chunk, a story is going to have to come off the bottom of the sprint backlog, that might make the product owner think, okay, well, I really wanted that story to be completed this sprint. Perhaps this meteor isn't actually something that has to be worked on. Perhaps we could wait for, another week, however long is left in your sprint.
Yeah. So it's really making that whole process transparent for the product owner, and not just. I mean, I suppose in the past it might have just looked like team not wanting to do anything about it.
Yes.
But if we're sitting down and talking about all of the implications, they can see exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And from the team's point of view, the meteors can be tracked through a system as well.
Exactly. Yes.
Whether you do it with the Kanban or whether you're sizing it in the way that your team has been doing.
And you mentioned that term seagulls earlier on. I think there's one company we know who refer to them as seagulls, just because it's something that comes along and poops on your situation or on your sprint.
I actually didn't know that until this morning. I didn't really found out why they were called seagulls, but someone was explaining it this morning.
Yeah, but it's a common thing that we get asked, like you said, at these scrunch lunges and how to handle them. And we'd be very interested to hear how other people handle these critical things that come in mid-sprint, and how you deal with them, because there's I'm sure, a myriad of approaches, and we're always interested to hear how other people are handling it, and if you have had any big successes with that, or tried some things that you failed with and adjusted your approach.
Absolutely. So another situation that's come up this week with one of our teams is working with another company, the Scrum team, and basically they're just starting off that project. So they're looking at how to incorporate that team and create a new team, basically.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of people from another company joining the Scrum. So what they're doing is they're having a kick-off meeting, and they're going to do some team building with some activity.
Yeah, that's going on behind us.
It is going on behind us. And I had a wee look through the window before I came in, and it looks like they're doing lots of drawing and having lots of fun, which might just seem like a bit of fun, but actually is a great way of getting everyone engaged and talking.
Well, absolutely,
You get sat next to someone that you don't know, and you sort of look over at what they're doing and compare it. And so it's just a good way for people to feel a little bit comfortable around people, get to know them slightly. I'm not sure. Do you know what exercises they're doing as part of that? I don't. There's a lot of felt tips and things going on, and drawing, and so I'm not sure.
Well, we'll check it out after it finishes and see how it went, and if there's anything interesting that comes out of it, we can talk about it here as well.
Yeah. I think the other thing about a facilitated exercise like that is that everyone has a chance to speak.
Yeah.
So it's not as though. If you're sitting around, say you do a team building thing where you go to the pub or go for lunch or something, and maybe that some people will sit back and not say terribly much. But if you're doing a facilitated exercise like that, everyone's asked to have a wee speak about what
I think these team building exercises are very important when you bring new people on board, especially when you bring a large group on board, or if you start a project with a completely new team. Some people don't put a lot of weight in team building meetings. They might think, that's an hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever, and that's not a meeting that I see as being absolutely necessary, because we're not actually producing any work. But I mean, it's very much worth it just to get a cohesive team at the start. And we've done team building exercises here at Boost. We've talked about some of them in the past on the board. But even if we have been working together for a number of years and we do a new team building exercise, we still find out lots of new information about
I think
each other.
there's always new stuff to find out because obviously at work we're quite often talking about work.
Yes, exactly. And
even when we went paintballing as a team, there were sort of things you find out about people doing paintballing, maybe stuff you didn't want to know. But,
yeah, that's right. But part of the doing the stand-up desks and doing these team building exercises, I think it really expresses the importance of having a good working atmosphere, because working in an agile way is not only about just the work itself and just the process that you might use, or however you choose to work in an agile way, whether it's Scrum or Kanban, but it's also very much about the people. I mean, that's one of the main agile values, and you want a happy team, and you want a team that is cohesive and communicates well together, and anything that you can do to promote this is really, really valuable. And I think the days where you have everybody working in isolation in little cubby holes or little separate pods, those days should be long gone. And instant messaging somebody who's 2 feet away from you, I think those days should be long gone too.
Yeah, and I mean that's not something we do terribly often around here. I mean we do have the advantage of being in quite a confined space where we can just shout across the room. Or wander over or something like that. But I think that the benefits are numerous. It's not just about productivity, it's also about coming into a happy environment each morning. Yeah,
coming into a happy environment and working at a sustainable pace.
And wanting to come to work, and that obviously has the productivity benefits as a result.
Yes.
It really does come down to that, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, doesn't it?
That's right. And if you, I'm sure a lot of people have had this experience, but when you go into, say, a new project and you just feel a bad atmosphere and nobody's really communicating, nobody's really talking, do everything you can to break free from that, because otherwise the project is just going to, if everybody's feeling down or depressed, I'm not sure what the right word is.
It's not a great way to start, is it?
No,
when you walk into that sort of environment, you can sort of feel that already you're failing in some way.
Because one thing that's worth remembering is that everybody who's there is an intelligent person who wants to do the best job that they possibly can and get the best outcome that they possibly can. It's always worth having that at the forefront of your mind. And you're there to support people and to help people achieve that. And if you can do that by changing the environment or having these exercises, team building exercises, absolutely do it.
Yeah, so it's not really about, obviously it's not about command and control and telling people what they should be doing.
No.
Making the assumption that they know what they should be doing and helping them to find those solutions for themselves.
Because these people are, talented people. You hire them for their experience and for their skills. So just do the best you can to let them do their work and concentrate on what their area of expertise is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's about all we've got for this week. Have you got anything else to add, Gav?
No, not really. I'll just mention the Lynn Caselli course again, because that is on August 29th, and if anybody's interested, you can sign up on our Eventbrite page. Like I said, I think it'll be a fun day.
I think actually we might be not having the board on that day. Is that the next one? In a couple of weeks, a couple of times, yeah. So we will miss a turn in a few weeks, but we'll remind you again when we do the next show. Okay. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you.